Hey guys, Steve Moran here with another episode of Senior Living Foresight. Merry Christmas first off. I am so pumped up about the show that we're doing today. We are going to be talking about how to elevate senior living with a couple of my favorite people, Kathleen O'Connor with Achieve Accreditation and Stephanie Harris with Aero Senior Living. But before we jump into our conversation, we are going to run this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Stephanie, Kathleen, welcome. So excited about having this conversation. Kathleen, let's start with you. I would like to have you give us a little bit of education. What is accreditation? I don't want to assume that people know. Some of you will, some will not.
Okay, well, Joint Commission is the largest and oldest accrediting body. So they've been setting the standards for what I would call achievable optimums for the last over 70 years. And in that, it's really a framework of excellence. It's taking the best practices, the stretch goals, structure, process, outcome, and it's putting it into a process where you can really do a gap analysis and really improve everything that you do related to quality, safety, healthcare side, as well as the operations side. So it's really just a well-tuned product that really has a lot to offer the healthcare industry.
Cool. So I think that when I tend to think of accreditation, I tend to think hospitals. So, and senior living doesn't seem like it's so it almost seems like it's a long way away. Can you talk to me a little bit about why this is important to senior living? Or do I have this wrong?
You have it wrong, my friend.
All right. Yeah.
So what does that make us score these days?
I know it's a myth. It is a myth. First of all, anything accreditation or certification wise, if it's healthcare, Joint Commission can address it and has addressed it very successfully. But just taking a moment to talk about as we would define senior living with skilled and assisted, I wanted to say something about that. Is that a lot of exciting things are happening, and what you knew about Joint Commission even probably 2-3 years ago in the senior living industry is no longer relevant. So what you need to know is that in the last 5 years, the skilled nursing industry has embraced and grown 70% with accreditation. Wow. So it's, off the charts for growth. And there's a lot of reasons. And I know in, future episodes, we'll have more time to get into the third-party drivers, but it's really, moving and shaking in that senior living skilled side. And assisted living, as you know, is a new product. And I know Stephanie is going to tell us about her experience with it. But it also is off the chart for excitement. I mean, the field review that Joint Commission got when they sent out the standards was just, unprecedented. And so they're really embracing it and learning more about it and seeing what it can do for them in terms of not just doing well on a survey, but improving their cultures of quality and safety.
Cool. So Stephanie, accreditation is kind of a big deal. It takes a commitment, takes a little bit of a financial commitment, and you're sort of pioneering in this. Why are you doing this?
Well, why would we not want to get better and at least set the stage to be a better operator? I think that for us, so let's just take a step back. If you look at skilled, they were sort of forced into quality outcomes. And I think in the industry we're in, as we are watching the kind of residents that are moving into our communities needs change, and with all of the, I guess I'm going into my 20th year in this industry, what I've noticed is that their seniors are moving in older, and then older than they were when I first started. And since COVID, their needs are more complex. And we had such a spotlight on the industry and COVID with some of the early press stories and the things that were going on. And we now we're at, risk for OSHA inspections. I think there's a real challenge for us to get ahead of how we self-govern, or we are going to choose to be governed by a body that I think has not necessarily made skilled nursing better. I think it's just created more costs and more complexity to really simple standards of just trying to create quality outcomes. And I think if we can get ahead of that and leaning into this process, it was the best way we could have third-party validation that what we were doing was setting the stage for the best possible outcome for our residents and our employees. And what we needed to validate it. And in some cases, we had to make some changes. We had to adopt some principles or processes that we didn't see as important to our operation, but maybe didn't understand or weren't considering that in light of raising the bar in terms of total best practice. So I think this is about the operators today really looking at how do we differentiate among all the product that's out there. How can we start to set standards to say we are better? We're committed to an ever improving quality assurance process. And I think this is just a matter of, are you going to commit to that goal? Otherwise, I think that there's somebody else who's going to figure out how to do it from a review process. And I think that, God forbid what that will look like.
Yeah. So there, you've raised so many questions, right? And I just I want to dig into this. I want to just sort of touch on some themes, and then Kathleen, I want to talk a little bit about your relationship and how you're working with Kathleen. But so first off, and I think most important, because I know you, it's about making life for residents and team members better and raising the bar. And so I love that. There would be people who might argue that they wouldn't do Achieve Accreditation. And actually, I'm going to ask both of you to talk about this, but most might do it. And they just say, well, it's sort of an unnecessary expense. Can you talk about that? And then I'd like to I'm going to ask you two questions at the same time, Stephanie, and then I'll let you address both of them. First off, I want to have you address that cost question. And then the second one, I want to have you talk a little bit about Achieve Accreditation and why you're working with them to make this all happen.
So first, Steve, the financial expense is to create better outcomes. You do have to invest. To have better sales results, you invest in marketing and advertising. And I think we have to look at clinical outcomes. It's not only about adding training. In this case, this was an amazing training process. It created an opportunity for teamwork, but the fact that we were getting such partnership in how we could improve internal operations, that's just priceless. So if we don't invest in quality outcomes or something to improve the business, the alternative is investing in the risk of poor outcomes, litigation, anything I can do to mitigate how the risks that are inherent in this industry. I'm going to chase that all day long. That's an investment worth making. What I didn't realize was all of the benefits we would gather from I'm seeing Cheryl Walker's name pop up here. She said, she was telling me about the teamwork, and I had visited this community within about a month. I could just see a transformation among the team members because they had been going through, the weekly and the biweekly calls in rotation, and they started having to pull together and think about outside of their silo. Think about culinary directors having to think about wellness outcomes. Some of the things we're challenged with in the industry in general is we think too much this department and that department, and neither really supports the other. We had to think about getting the teams to collaborate in a way that I don't think we often create those opportunities in senior housing. Now, the last part of your question, Steve, that I would say is that we practice a lot in our company because we want to be prepared in scenarios. If it's from how we do our sales coaching and training to, in this case, this allowed us to create practice opportunities from our mock surveys to what we were doing in our readiness efforts. We were practicing a best-in-class performance. And what that does is it doesn't guarantee it, but it sets the stage that we're going to be that much more prepared for this scenario or that scenario. And if I've learned anything over the course of my career is that just be prepared for extraordinary circumstances, because everything is more extraordinary than ordinary in healthcare. And I think this gave us that much more of an opportunity to take our clinical services and accelerate it to a practice level that required the interdisciplinary teamwork that I never would have imagined that part being such a big part of the game, or really the financial result, or let's call it the reward.
I love that. So Kathleen, I think that one of the things that I'm hearing, you're actually fairly modest about this, but I actually wanted to come back and dig in with you just a little bit. What's your background? What's your expertise in terms of working with companies like Arrow?
Okay, well, I am in my 35th year of doing this. This is all I've done. This is not a bullet point on my resume. All I've done is Joint Commission accreditation. I have a unique perspective that I did it from the other end. I was there for almost a decade and got to see on the inside just how amazing it was for standards of quality and safety and just best practices galore. But then going on 26 years ago, I said, well, what about at the end of my life, when I'm sitting on my deathbed saying, what did I do with my life? What if I went on the other side of the fence and I actually helped make those standards come alive? And, we all got into this business for the same reason. We love seniors. We want to make everything we could better for them. And there's no better forum to do it than the Joint Commission accreditation. And, just to piggyback on what Stephanie said too, she talked about Cheryl Walker, who I also want to give a shout out to, because it was palpable, the excitement when we talked to her afterwards, and what was surprising to me, and Arrow does everything in a big way, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But what really surprised me was how they involved the residents and the families and the staff. Because really this is an education process, right? You need to tell the field, like, we're not the same as the place down the street. We're different. We held ourselves to achievable optimums. We didn't go for the minimal level of compliance. So, your people that are shopping for your care, they need to know that. And that's an important part of the process. And Arrow did that from the very beginning. They have a 13-minute video on YouTube celebrating, what a difference this made at their communities. You've got Derek Harris out there, who I'm also going to give a shout out to, who said, if this was easy, everybody would be doing it. They embraced the vulnerability. Yes. They embraced the vulnerability that came with saying, we're not perfect. We don't have everything right. And that's a myth about Joint Commission. Oh, we're already doing quality. We don't need to do that. There is no stop. There is no end to the road of quality. This is a continuous process. And why not start out with the best framework there is out there?
Well, and everybody says we do quality, right? I mean, even the worst communities out there say, oh, yeah, we're great. And what I love about this is that you've created a standard where you can go out to two areas. First off, if I am going to work, I'm looking to go work in senior living. Do I want to go work for a community that says, oh, yeah, we are great at being sort of average? Or do I want to go to work for a organization that says, I want to embrace being the very best? And then as a family member, I just can't imagine if I'm in a little personal story. I talked about it before, but when my mom needed nursing home care, we picked a 5-star nurse, CMS rated nursing home. And as anybody in the industry knows, the 5-star system doesn't mean anything, and it was a terrible experience. But if you're working with Achieve Accreditation, you've got accreditation, you've really created something wonderful. But here's the other thing for both of you want to know is it sounds like you've sort of made this hard thing fun. Can you talk to me about that?
We did. And, I don't want to lose the point again of our good buddy, Cheryl Walker, this Arrow staff. And I want to go back to it for a second because it's very valuable. And it's what this is all about. She said, her exact words is that residents, family, and staff said, we love being in the winner's circle. That to me is powerful. That is very powerful. This isn't something that we do behind closed doors with staff. This is, part of everyday practice. Residents knew something was going on and they were, very much a part of it. And everybody likes to be with the winner. And that's what, accreditation offers you. When you don't go for the minimal level of compliance, when you go for those achievable optimums and outside your comfort zone, right? When, Steve and Stephanie, in your career, have you grown the most, right? It's when we put ourselves outside of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I was just going to throw out. I just was going to throw out there, though. I think there's a reality that families are discerning way more today about what you're doing and what we're offering. As I think, Steve, we've chatted in the past. I believe that what we're going to have to be is more transparent in our industry. We're a little cagey about how we share our best, share how we're really doing. But I was surprised that how much it even opened our doors from an outreach perspective with long-term care providers. So skilled nursing understands the value of joint commission. And the fact that, we keep talking about Cheryl, we should have had her on this call, but I know that it opened a door in a relationship. It was a relationship she needed or she wanted to, a partnership she wanted to create. And just by saying we were beginning the process of joint commission, it caught the attention and it caused really the start of the relationship. And I think that's powerful when we're all looking for how do we find more residents. I think we're going to have to align with healthcare partnerships and figuring out how to keep people healthy and out of the healthcare system. And what better way to do that than to partner up, because other providers see that we're a way to keep people safer and longer in a home-like setting and out of the hospital. So I think there's other value to it that even with that investment can have a yield that we're only on the beginning of understanding in its full impact.
Yeah. I like that so much. And I have this picture in my mind of one of your salespeople going into a hospital discharge planner and saying, you know what, we're the only accredited senior living community in our marketplace, and how powerful and impactful that is.
Yep.
Can we talk a little bit about the process? What was the fun part, maybe even what was the painful part so Stephanie, you made this decision, you connected with Kathleen, you said, okay, let's go do this. What was that like?
Well, so first and foremost, I think last year at this time is really when we started forming this relationship. It was probably maybe just a little bit before. And I remember our team thinking I was a little crazy that in the middle of everything we needed to accomplish, why do we need to do this? And actually, our chief wellness officer, Cora Butler, I think really formed the initial relationship with Achieve Accreditation. But what we understood is we needed a partner that would help us navigate through a process while we were managing everything else. So we saw that as a very important investment to give this 100% when we knew that our administrative team wasn't able to do that 100%. Now, we did have to designate resources to help support, but I think it gave us a leg up to ensure that we were out of the gate running and that we could create success from this effort. And for us, this was about validating 3 communities to then roll it out to almost 30 communities in total. We needed to make sure that we didn't miss a beat. And Achieve Accreditation got us to that point. And I would say on top of their weekly commitment and more to the reviews, the gap analysis that Kathleen had mentioned, I also found the role of the Joint Commission was so incredibly helpful in their check-ins and their involvement. And there's just something to be said about people just trying to make senior living better. And that's the kind of people that I like to be around. Steve, it's why I enjoy visiting with you. And it's why I enjoy the purpose and the mission of what Achieve Accreditation is trying to do in advancing the awareness of the Joint Commission process.
So, Kathleen, can you talk from your perspective? So, I imagine there are some operators out there who are looking at watching the show and who will watch
Mhm.
it in the coming week, who will say, "Oh man, that it seems like it sounds like a really good idea." I'm thinking maybe perhaps particularly there are people in Arrow's marketplace who are maybe feeling a little down and out that are looking at this and saying this. Talk to me a little bit about what the process looks like to get
Sure,
started and
sure.
what the journey looks like.
hmm and as Stephanie said, that's where we come in. We're the how-to people, and that's what we're doing. We're project managers. I use that term more than consultants, but I have consultants on there because you got to Google us and find us. But we're project
Yep.
managers, and what we do is we come in and we focus. After doing this for 35 years, we know the standards that are going to get the most play. Not to say that you're not going to look at all the standards for improvement, because they all have merit. But in your initial survey, you really want to stay focused. As Stephanie said, you need the tour guide piece really helps because it doesn't fall off the radar screen when something else is happening at the community. So you're going to have that. And our brand promise is that we come in with hands-on guidance and comprehensive accreditation resources. So while it's not cookie cutter, it's turnkey, right? It's turnkey that we customize to you, and we're going to be able to do this. And a very, if you want to make it sustained change, I would recommend 6 months, from start to end. You could do it quicker and live to tell about it, but this isn't about doing well on a survey. This is about improving your culture of quality and safety and things that are going to be sustainable. And this doesn't end at the end of the survey. This is a forever continuous quality improvement journey. And you see that shift, and Stephanie has seen it with her team, where everything they do now, everything they embrace, when you go through an interdisciplinary process like this, it really it changes, shifts. It's a mind shift.
So
And let me,
actually want to dig a little. I want
yeah,
to dig deeper into that, right? Because
sure.
I think that this is not like just getting a certification one time and then walking away. And so you'll be involved with Arrow. It sounds like on an ongoing, I don't know, forever basis.
Well, it's up to
Forever is a
us.
long time, but maybe,
Yeah,
right?
it's up to us to prove ourselves. But most of our clients, believe it or not, we've had 35 years. We are longstanding relationships with our clients as project managers on their quality and safety, not just as it relates to Joint Commission, but other business initiatives that are going to go on at Arrow. We're going to say, let's give that a home with accreditation, because then we know it stays on the radar screen. And going back to your question, Steve, very good question, is what does this look like? If you want to take us in the most simple form, take a funnel and shake up what you do every day, right? And put it through this funnel. And there's going to be 3 pieces that come out. You're going to have a piece that comes out and says validation. Great job. Arrow was already doing this, right? Then you're going to have that second shake of the funnel where it's going to say Arrow is doing it. Well, we're all set, they tell us. Well, not quite. You need to do a little bit deeper dive here. And, we don't know what we don't know, right? Until we get into the process. And that's why the vulnerability that Arrow showed is, very commendable by holding themselves accountable to these achievable higher end standards. And then the last piece of the funnel, when I shake it up and pour it out on the table, is no shame and no blame, but we weren't doing this. We didn't realize this was important. We didn't realize how this, can affect care and the structure, process, and outcome. And, when we take a look at it, we do see value added to this, and we're going to add it to our bag of tricks of what we do to make this a better place for all the seniors that live here and all the staff that work here. So it's a very deep dive on quality and safety. And the only way you can do that is by doing something like that for over 70 years. And that's what the Joint Commission is about. It is about achievable optimums that they write with the industry, with the field, and the whole soul mission, like all of us have on this call, is to improve quality and safety for all in healthcare. And we just are so passionate about that at Achieve Accreditation. It never gets boring. And over 10,000 homes that I've helped during my Joint Commission communities, during my Joint Commission days and my Achieve Accreditation days, never once have I ever been told that we didn't get better because of this.
That's like a mic drop moment there, right? So I really love that. So one of the things that I find myself sort of running through my head right now is, and this is particularly inspired by the massive number of comments that I'm glancing at while we're talking is that I sort of have this vision of a CEO walking into their ops team and going, "Hey guys, I've got this great idea. We are going to do accreditation," and the team going, "Oh, Stephanie." Because I know kind of what this likes. I mean, it's not accreditation, but probably every Friday morning when I walk in to our virtual team meeting, the team goes, "Oh man, what's he going to propose today?" And I can see Jada, our our producer, in the background, smiling and laughing because she knows that this is true. And yet, when I'm looking at the comments here, what I'm seeing is people who sound like they've just really embraced it, and it's been a terrific instead of a terrible experience. And so I want to know about that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Steve. It really has a sifting role of finding the best people who are committed also to making the excellence. The measure of excellence is exceeding the last best day. And those who are settlers and really want to look at work as a time money exchange, they just don't have a fit in our organization. And we did lose some people because they thought this was that we're on the 3 communities that disagreed with this as a focus. And what that told us is that much faster that they weren't a fit and they weren't committed to raising the bar. Because I think that communities have to look at, if you're a new community, filling up is only just the beginning. If you're a community that's not staffed up fully, staffing up is only just the beginning. There's so many layers that you have to look at in creating and defining what exceptional excellence looks like. And I think that just takes a certain person. And I tell people, like, you're either going to love what we do, or it's going to be the most painful company you've ever worked for. And some people found those painful points and made the exit, but we're better and more aligned in our commitment to success because of that process. And I think there's something to be said about trying to make your operation better, proving out who's in it for the right reasons and who's in it for that improvement.
So I have a keynote that I do called Look to the Sky. And one of the elements of that keynote is we put together a list of 101 things that you can do to lead better tomorrow. And I don't know that you could do all 101 tomorrow, but you could do at least one of them tomorrow. And as part of talking about the list, I say the hardest one on that list I want to talk to you about, and that's that every one of you has somebody working in your organization right now that you need to fire. And every time I say that, there's this palpable, you can see sort of grimaces on people's face because everybody knows. I mean, they see a face and they put a name in their head immediately. And so what you're doing here, and it sounds weird, right? But you've created this really objective way to do that sifting. And I know your organization is better for that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, at least created an opportunity for individuals to deselect, but it also it really tested the team under a controlled situation in how they could critically think about tackling one of the outcomes where we had a gap. How do we address it? Those were exercises that really gave us insights into the thinking of our leadership. And I watched, Derek and LaShawn from our team were the regional leaders through this process, working with the 3 communities, working with Achieve Accreditation, just even watching what they've gained from the process and understanding in their roles, if it was on analytics or if it was working with the regional wellness team, that was a layer of insights that you don't always get an opportunity to see when you're trying to think about better outcomes, versus most of the time you interact with communities when something's gone wrong, when something hasn't gone very well. So I think it's really exciting to be able to see the upside of people applying their skill sets for the benefit of the business, not necessarily around risk containment.
Yeah, I just really, really love that. So we are running up on the clock here. Kathleen, how do people find you to get started on this process?
You can find us at achieveaccreditation.com. But, before you say no before you say no. Look at accreditation. Maybe it's not right for you, but make the decision based on facts. You can look at the standards, you can look at the framework. This is doable, even though it may seem like a big task. 6 months is doable. You need to think about, what your competitive zone is doing. You mentioned that, Steve. Maybe it doesn't make sense in 2023 because it's just not going to fit your strategic plan. But look at it again in 2024, because I know your competitors are, and people are gearing up and lining up both in skilled and assisted living, and it's something to take a fresh look at.
And the last thing I would say relative to that is, if you decide this is not for you, you need to think about the impacts of not doing that. Stephanie, you made this decision. You've gone through it with 3 buildings. You've obviously decided that it was worth it and to go do it with the rest of the building. And I'm completely in love with people like Stephanie and Kathleen who look at that and say, we can be better, and we're going to be better. And because this is about people's lives, both the people that live in our community, the people who work in our community, and the family members. And so all of this is just super, super important. Thank you so much for changing the world this way. Merry Christmas. And and everybody who's watching this should be doing this. And with that, we are going to say goodbye. Stephanie, Kathleen, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Stephanie.